Okay, again, I'm sorry, just a bit of a brain fart, but hey guys, back with another video, and this time it's going to be not exactly a sequel to the last one, but it's another video. It's the Israelites of Asia series. This one will be teachings, and we'll be covering Mahayana Buddhism and the ancient Israelites. Now, this one's more or less going to be a video focused on the histories of Israelites being over in Asia, and also the connection between Mahayana Buddhism and the ancient Israelites. More or less, them being responsible for the creation or said teachings of Buddhism in general, but and also specifically the branch of Mahayana Buddhism. So we're gonna get right into it. Okay, next slide. Oh, okay, next slide. Now, as y'all know, oh, actually, let me move that down. Probably can't see it, hopefully, or probably did just see that. My bad. Apologies. But we'll be covering, not covering. This is a disclaimer. My bad. My bad. I'm tired. All right, we're getting right into it. Don't think I can get rid of that, so just gonna ignore that. But disclaimer: cognitive dissonance, mental disturbance people feel when their beliefs and/or actions are challenged by new information or stimuli. This happening results in discomfort, disengagement, and/or retaliatory ideas and actions. This often happens with Japhet's children in accordance to their blessing with Patha H6601 in the secondary definition, including to be deceived, persuade, to seduce, or be simple, to be deceived and naive. This meaning it is a natural inclination for them to do this. Not all, but it is often the case of Gog and Magog, the Scythians, 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 them, along with Javan, the Greeks rewriting much of history. So, as I said in the previous video, and I'm going to say again, this is new information that, or this, to many of you, this could be new information. And if you feel some type of way without analyzing it first from a logical point of view, from thinking first and just hearing the information as opposed to outright just feeling for it and getting offended, butthurt, what have you. This applies to y'all. So again, and I don't want to keep singling out Japhet's children, but I mean looking at what we see or what we've learned in history and how most of our teachers are Japheth. I hate to say it, but this applies to a lot of that. So just keep that in mind. And y'all can read it for yourselves again. You can pause and read it, but we're gonna move on. Crap. Okay. Another disclaimer again. So another one. Societal conditioning, the sociological process of training an individual or individuals in a society to respond in a manner generally approved of by the society in general and with peer groups in the society. Manifestations of social conditioning can be categorized as social structures and patterns such as education, entertainment, nationalism, religion, popular culture, and family life. Remember that most of what we learned and will learn is revised history in a culture that is not our own, conditioned to think, feel, and react in a manner by the hidden counsels and the serpent who seek to continue and expand upon our enslavement. So again, keep in mind that most of what we learned in terms of public education and what is accessible on the surface level to the public is revised history. And we're often conditioned to think in a manner that this is the only history that does exist, as opposed to us doing our own research and deep diving and exploring books and studies and papers for ourselves. We're often conditioned to go along with peer reviewed studies or listen to the quote unquote experts who are more often than not part of hidden councils, agendas, you name it. There's always an ulterior motive behind what they teach to the public. Now, this isn't some super secretive, fancy, smanchy information. I mean, y'all can literally go research this and look it up. Because it's better to go back farther enough in history and read through older books and older texts as opposed to newer paper material, since it's often revised or it's edited or what have you. So again, y'all can research this. Y'all can research this yourself. Look into it, explore it. It's on you to honestly do the research. Now, you don't have to believe everything I say. You don't have to. And if you disagree or you feel some type of way, whether it's cognitive dissonance or it's something bothering the societal conditioning that you're experiencing, then you can just leave. But if you want to stick through it, well, just stay for the video. It's up to you. I won't force you to watch videos or have to believe every word I say. But there's evidence, and it's just a matter of doing your own research and exploring and learning and using critical thinking, pattern recognition, and just understanding and using your noggin. Just use your brain is all I'm saying. So we're going to continue. Last disclaimer. This video is for those who know what many of us Afro-Americans are and what our true history entails, as well as Gentiles who seek to become proselytes and dispel the lies of their fathers. This video is for those who call upon the true name of the Ishi Eloha, Haya Haya, I am, his name in Hebrew and in English. Search Strong's Concordance H1961 and Exodus 3:14. Any other name is blaspheming his great name as he has warned us and our ancestors. If you can't get past these 3 slides, this video isn't meant for you. Disregard and leave. You aren't meant to. It's that simple. If you're not feeling this video, if this is triggering that cognitive dissonance or the societal conditioning of feeling some type of way, as opposed to actually thinking first and just understanding and using logical reasoning, you can leave. You don't have to watch this video. You can just go somewhere and leave. I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to debate. I'm simply providing information at the end of the day. This is just information that you can or cannot, that you can accept whether or not, or just understand or listen or learn it. This is up to you entirely. So you can leave. This is not a place for debates or arguments. Just go do your own thing. Go make your own video. Go do whatever you want to go do. You're free to do that. Yeah. Now, as opposed to the first bullet point, I hate to say it, a lot of Israelite camps often have this notion that the Gentiles can't be saved, or they can't find or have salvation, when we know that the 10 Commandments given to Moses are applicable. They're applicable to every and all men, regardless. So I mean, and also the fact that there were righteous Gentiles in the past. I mean, so we it's one thing I've noticed, this kind of talking point that doesn't really get addressed, is the fact that they're often told that that they can't be saved, that they're forever to be excluded, or that they just a variety of things, more or less, to just alienate them. In reality, we're supposed to teach them and bring them to righteousness. They could be just as righteous as Israelites, and hence why they have the term proselytes. They can the law exists for us and for them as well. I mean, they can also receive the blessings as long as they also follow the law. So I mean, like, we are supposed to be distinguished among them, but at the same time, we're not supposed to outright alienate them and separate them from us. So I mean, you shouldn't be doing that. If you have the chance to teach them and help them understand, by all means, we should do so. Now, at the end of the day, it's their own choice and volition to whether or not they want to follow the law. But at the same time, we can't just outright say, no, they can't be saved, or we're just supposed to alienate them and keep them distant and all that jazz. I'm not saying we're supposed to intermingle and do what they do, but at the same time, if we have a chance to help them and give them better understanding, then we should explore at least the opportunity to do so. Maybe not right now in this current geopolitical climate that we're living in, but at least later along down the line, if we come across them in the future, and if they're willing to learn, they're not outwardly hostile, then we should extend the branch. So there's that second point. You guys already know. This is the most important point, bullet point, and period in the video. It's just his true name, Haya Haya. The Ishi Eloha Hayah. That's his name. The only name that does matter. That is the true name. Any other name is just blaspheming and it's just false. I'm not gonna get into that in this video, but again, if you can't get past these 3 initial slides, you can leave. Okay, I'm done yapping. All right, moving on to the next. My apologies. Video inspirations. Shout out Lex Will again. He's been doing research and teaching much of the truth for years now. He had brought up and covered the connection of Buddhism being connected to Israelites, such as some of the oldest schools being Israelite in origin. So I know this is stemming from one of his older videos. I can't remember how far back. It's not. It's a while ago, but not too long ago. But he did make a video covering it, and it's like again, interesting. Give credit where it's due. I wouldn't have learned this if it wasn't for him. So it's like I tried to research it, So again, shout out Lex. Check out his channel and show your support to him. His channel link will be down below in the description. So if you guys want to, show him some support, by all means, donate to him and all that to help him out. And I also got to do the same thing. So again, shout out Lex. Keep it up. Okay, video sources. So sources for the video: the Torah, the Lost Tribes and the Saxons of the East and of the West with New Views of Buddhism, Wikipedia, Gemini AI, the Ultimate Encyclopedia of Mythology, newvoices.org, the Book of Maccabees, spiritualityshepherd.com, and Britannica.com. I'm pretty sure I had included at least the material from the sources in there. I'm pretty positive, but we'll continue. Now, getting into the video after 12 minutes, my golly, apologies. Ooh-wee. Okay, so Mahayana Buddhism, Mahayana or Mahayana, either way you can pronounce it. The name is purported to mean great vehicle in Sanskrit. It is one of the 3 prevailing branches of Buddhism as a whole and had originated in 1st century BC. It accepts the main teachings of Buddhism and also scriptures that aren't accepted by the other branches, such as the Theravada and Vajrayana Tantric is canonical. Tongue twister right there. It was originally widespread throughout ancient Central Asia. The Kushan Empire / Kushan Kingdom had first patronized its teachings, with its borders encompassing parts of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, and northern India, and China. I should have also included that. Well, its influence spread from there and even reaching into China, Korea, and Japan. So you can also find its schools or the schools under Mahayana Buddhism as far as China, Korea, and Japan as well. Keep that in mind. And that since it also had originated in 1st century BC, we could also, this is just me going a bit on a tangent here, but you can also piece the connecting points that since it originated in the 1st century BC, that was also around the same time or during the Yushi migration period as well. We know that the Yushi are the Sakai, the Saxons, and that the Saxons are the Israelites. So just keep that equation in mind. Just a little tidbit, but getting deeper into the video. The components of Mahayana Buddhism. And one thing before I start, should be pretty obvious, is the fact that his name is a part of the name of the teaching. So I mean, you take out the MA and the NA, you get Mahayana, or not Mahayana, you get Hayah. So just drop, hopefully the mouse appears on screen, but you drop the MA and the NA, you just get Hayah. Hayah Hayah, you get his name. So the name was literally right there. They already knew the name, so I doubt it means great vehicle. Sanskrit, different language, but the name's right there. You can't miss that. So getting back into it, some of the primary components of this are the Bodhisattva ideal, Bodhisattva, It's hard to pronounce. Ideal. This concept is central to Mahayana Buddhism. A bodhisattva is a person who postpones their own enlightenment in their journey until all others have been liberated from their own suffering. Now, one way to interpret and understand this is that we are meant to be teachers. We are supposed to teach righteousness and understanding of the Most High's law, His statutes, and His commandments. And no, following that law and teaching it, we can also prevent suffering. And well, we are, and that's essentially what it does. Because I mean, He blesses you for following His commandments and His laws. You know, you follow the commandments, you follow the laws, you follow His teachings, you will be liberated from your own suffering in the sense of sin, poor choices, and wickedness. So it it's a strong correlation on where this is derived from, is what I'm saying. You have the sutras. These are a broader list of scriptures. Okay, I got a typo right here. Whoops. Broader list of scriptures that are recognized by Buddhists. They include Praj. I don't know if the J is silent or not, but I'm just gonna Prajna Paramita Sutras, which emphasize the importance of wisdom, and we know how important wisdom is in terms of scripture, and the Pure Land Sutras that detail rebirth in a Pure Land Buddha field. Now, we know that man is only dictated to live once, and that rebirth is probably more likely being in the new world to come, created by the Most High when He creates the paradise on earth. So, I mean, chances are that's more likely where that's also derived from. And again, diverse schools. It has a variety of schools under it, such as Zen, Nichiren, Pure Land, Tiantai, and others. So there is a variety of lesser schools under Mahayana Buddhism. Because I'm pretty sure Zen and Nichiren are Japanese, or I could just be assuming, and I could very well be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that those are Japanese in origin, at least the names. Or the names are Japanese in origin, but the teachings have reached those lands. Pure Land more than likely being the rebirth, as they're talking about Tiantai. I'm not entirely sure what that is yet, but I'm gonna research that. Yeah. So next slide. Connections between Mahayana Buddhism and the ancient Israelites. Note: considering if you're watching this video, you've seen my other video. Hold on, give me a minute. Okay, I'm back. Apologies, I had to take care of some. Okay, oh yeah, note. Considering if you're watching this video, you've seen my other video, Israelites, Iacobites of Asia, China. It provides the basis and context for much of the materials in this video, as well as a perspective on where these Israelites were in particular. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch that video. So, you can already imagine what this means, basically. If you had watched the first video, you will have a much better understanding of where I'm coming from in terms of just people, lands, location, and everything in general in regards to this video right here. Because the Yushi went on to create the Kushan Empire. The Kushan Empire, or kingdom, had patronized and endorsed Mahayana Buddhism in particular. So, I mean, we know that Yushi, Sakai Israelites, which went on to establish the Kushan Kingdom, who went on to patronize and endorse the teachings of Mahayana Buddhism. So you should be able to see the streamlined connection of where I'm going with this. The connection should be pretty apparent, you know, or it should be easier to understand. I'll go into further detail as I go on, but that just follow that baseline right there. That's the essential baseline. That video gives a lot of context. I'll say that's pretty important. But moving on. Oh, whoops. Let me click back on that. Okay. Ancient Israelites are right, or ancient Israelites traveling in Asia. I gotta stop saying that. They're already there. Apologies. Traveling in Asia. Concerning the book, the Lost Tribes, Saxons of the West and of the East with New Views on Buddhism. Let me actually use the mouse. It goes into detail with the history of the Saxons, Saka, being the ancient Israelites. From the previous video and research, we've reached the conclusion that the Israelites are indeed native to Asia, specifically to the Gansu in China. Oh yeah, I forgot the word video. The video, as mentioned, also details how they also inhabited northern India and western China. It also explains the creation of Buddhism, the teachings of it, also being syncretized versions. Syncretized. When I say that, I mean syncretism. The amalgamation of different religions and shit. So there's that versions of biblical scriptures, but also being very much centered around wisdom, righteousness, and law. The reason it is relevant is the fact that Buddhism, Mahayana in particular, was prevalent widely throughout the Kushan kingdom in the 1st century AD, which was founded by the Yushi Tokari. It fell in decline later on with the conflicts of religions such as Hinduism, Islam, and other pagan practices. So, meaning it is clearly prophesied and said in the Torah that you stray from the scripture, things go wrong, things get bad, things get wonky, and they get funky. So, keeping that in mind, and knowing that again, a lot of the syncretism is what Buddhism is technically, since it's just amalgamations of pagan practices infused into the scripture. You can see where things started going wrong, especially in the sense of the Kushan kingdom falling into decline. So keeping that going forward. A modern analysis of origins. With the aforementioned book as the primary source, we can say out of the modern theories, the cults of the book theory seems to be the most genuine and in line theory given by experts. In the case of the origins of Mahayana Buddhism. In comparison to the Torah, it is often expressed deeply by the Ishi and said patriarchs and prophets to study scripture, pray and mediate wisdom, and be giving and be righteous within the law. There are many similarities to be seen. So many of the teachings or sutras of Mahayana Buddhism, more or less, they circle around wisdom, compassion, and natural law. And we know that natural law is the commandments. Compassion is to be giving and helping the strangers and those who are less fortunate than us, and to be righteous, which is being good, following the law, following the commandments of the Ishi, and helping others and teaching said scripture. So the similarities and the parallels are literally back to back. We could see where Buddhism gets all this from. Or again, it's just teachings of the scripture that have just been paganized or syncretinized and what have you. So it's just changes, but more or less, the message is still there. As well as again, they knew the name. They blaspheming, unfortunately, just goofing up big time, but evidence is right there. Now I'm gonna read this. I gotta really start. I got up the production value. My bad, folks. Should have cropped that. Now, the cult of the book theory, and this is from Wikipedia, defended by Gregory Chopin, states that the Mahayana arose among a number of loosely connected book-worshipping groups of monastics who studied, memorized, copied, and revered particular Mahayana sutras. Chopin thinks that they were inspired by cult shrines where Mahayana sutras were kept. Chopin also argued that these groups mostly rejected stupa worship or worshipping holy relics. That right there should honestly confirm that, they had some version or book or teachings of the Torah still intact. We know that the Greeks came in and burned it, but we also know that, again, it's a difficult task to do, but, with the evidence of having scribes and, teachers and, scholarly elders, it's suffice to say and can be said that, some of it had to be memorized and rewritten down again in different formats, or at least in just smaller versions of what they could remember in the scripture to be held on to. Because I mean, honestly, we're not supposed to idolize anything. We're not supposed to be idolaters. We're not supposed to worship in the ways of the heathen. You know, because we're supposed to, again, idolatry, big no. But the fact that this theory, well, it should honestly be fact that they were worshiping a book. Now we don't worship the book quite literally because we worship through the book to be connected to the Ishi Eloha Haya Haya. But the fact that they revered it and they learned it and they were memorizing what they call sutras, which are really just scriptures, goes to show that they had some version of the Torah or the Tanakh still tangible, whether it was fragments of it or what have you. It was still, it was still there in some form or fashion. So I mean, this, at least in my opinion, and the way I see it, and how I am interpreting the information, how I'm understanding it, is that this is the Torah. The cult of the book theory is really just the cult of the Torah, which is just the culture of the Torah, what the people was connected to directly. Because they don't say what people in particular were worshiping it directly. They don't say that. They're just calling them monastics, but we know that monasteries are just temples, and monastics are just monks who are just essentially priests or scholars or students. It's just semantics, plays on words, but you can understand where I'm coming from. That this is the people worshiping the book, or they have the book. They held it in reverence. Now this dude here, David Drews, has recently argued against all of the major theories outlined above. There's two other theories, but I'm not gonna hold you. Y'all can look this up yourselves, and you can see it. But this is just what I found honestly important and relevant to the topic at hand. The other two theories, they don't really hold much water. At least in mine, I don't really care. They don't really hold much water in my opinion. But this guy right here, though, it's I feel like either some sort of agent or some sort of in the know scholar, being part of fraternity or something. You know, David Drews has recently argued against all the major theories outlined above. He points out that there is no actual evidence for the existence of book shrines, that the practice of sutra veneration was pan-Buddhist, pardon me, and not distinctly Mahayana. Furthermore, Drews argues that Mahayana sutras advocate mnemic oral practices more frequently than they do written ones. I was just talking about this, which is, I doubt. Regarding the forest hypothesis, he points out that only a few Mahayana sutras directly advocate forest dwelling, while the others either do not mention it or see it as unhelpful. Promoting easier practices such as merely listening to the sutra or thinking of thinking of particular Buddhas that they claim can enable one to be reborn in special, luxurious, pure lands, where one will be able to make easy and rapid progress on the Bodhisattva path and attain Buddhahood after as little as one lifetime. Drew states that the evidence merely shows that Mahayana was primarily a textual movement focused on revelation and preaching, and man, cut that off. Anyway, I don't know, this guy right here, this is just more or less, this is just kind of like throwing a wrench into things. Like, this is just kind of, this detracts from what is actually important. Because I mean, with this guy Gerger Chopin, it seems like he kind of nailed it on the head. Because I mean, this is the most likely theory that actually makes sense. Again, this is just my opinion. So I could be very well wrong, but honestly, the way I'm understanding it and thinking about it, this logically makes sense. Like I'm going to present more information, but just with the understanding of what's been shown so far in reading, and again doing your own research, my own research, and also reading different books. This seems to be the most likely theory. Again, that book of the Saxons of the East and of the West with new views on Buddhism. Reading that book and reading about this cult of the book theory, it makes perfect sense. Whereas this guy right here is just kind of, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. So, man, again, hence why I said experts. I'm not really sure. So I don't know if he's in the know or not, whether he's a Freemason or a Luciferian or what have you. It's again, a lot of these experts, not saying all of them, but the majority, they get into some shifty things. But we're going to move on. Move on. Now here's the map that I did find. I think this is Wikipedia too. I'm pretty sure I can also find this one just as well. You can find it. But here's the map. Now, I wish I could zoom in further, but I can't really do that. Maybe? Nope. My bad, my bad. I thought I could zoom in. Alright. So hopefully it's not too weird looking on screen and that y'all can see it. Or maybe I can like watch on the TV or something. Technology. The extent of influence. So all this in the yellow right here is Buddhism. Just Buddhism right here. And you can see the maps, and you can see the three arrows down here represent three different schools. Red is Mahayana, green is Theravada, blue is Vajrayana Tantric. So you get to see all this, And the orange, deep orange is the heartland of Buddhism, the Ganges Valley, India from the 6th to 4th century BCE, the Buddhist majority realm, historic realm of Buddhist expansion. So we look right here, right? And we see China, we got Mongolia, there's Central Asia right here. You have India, you have Cambodia, you got Vietnam, you got Burma, you got Laos. Now, Lex has covered this recently well, he's been covering this for a while. So you could see right here Siam, which is the true name of Shem. And under right here, I don't know if y'all can see it clearly, but it says no, the city of Judea, or Ayudea, or in particular, accurately, Ayutthaya. So you got the Most High's name right there, courtesy of Lex Will. Look at that. He's shown us where the city was through the painting and all that. Like, look at that, Siam. So it right there. So I'm just saying, and the extent of influence. So I mean, no, us being native to Asia and seeing where China is right there, bang boop bop. Came from the Gansu over in northern China, bang boop bop. Now also looking at Central Asia and just also I gotta remember how massive Asia actually is, or China is. Central Asia, you got Bactria, which we did say that the Yushi were also there. So I mean, look at that, look at all that, man. I'm just saying, just look at this map and take as much as you can from it. Because I'm just saying, bang boop bop. Also, you got Burma. Look at that. Bhutan, Cambodia. But look at that, Ayutthaya. And you can see that Mahayana was pretty much everywhere. I mean, even as far as Vietnam, which is like right next to Siam. So I mean, I'm pretty sure it was also there as well. And it reached even to as far as Korea and Japan. So I mean, the culture, the teachings, they travel with the people. So that means the people were everywhere over here. And us being responsible as a whole for Buddhism in general, or at least the ancestors were. We're Asians, everywhere. All around here, everywhere, is all I'm saying. So, good map. Very good map. But continuing forward, also, I kind of just want to host spiel there. My apologies. Didn't really have like anything concrete to go into detail, but otherwise, just the in general influence of it. So, again, you can see all the prominent locations that are shown. And also, black shows all the early Buddhist schools right here. So, again, we were also in India, Bang, boop, bop. Well, northern India to be precise, but yeah. Interesting, I'm going to say that. Very interesting. You're in the north. Not the south, but we are in the northern parts of it. Again, Central Asia. We also came from the Gansu in China, which is somewhere over here. And again, that's all I'm saying. Bang, boop, bop. Just interesting. Very, very interesting map. Now, the origins of Israelites and Buddhism. Within the book, The Lost Tribes and the Saxons of the East and of the West, with new views on Buddhism, it further reinforces the notion that the Israelites were known as the Sakai people, or Sakai and another names such as the Buddhi. That's a funny name, I'm sorry. Such as the Buddhi people. This being evident as the basis for the term Buddhism and or Buddhist. So I mean, like literally, you drop the ist or the no, you drop the st or sm and you got Buddhi or Buddhi, Buddhism, Buddhist. You know, so it's literally it's in the name. You know, right there. It is stated that they did arrive in India to the north, and they were seen as distinctly different from the Scythians. So again, they are distinct from Scythians. So when you get the children of Japheth saying, you know, or they exclaim that that Shemitic peoples are in particular, you know, they have a lovely habit of saying that Shemitic means Arab looking or Mediterranean looking people, and that is not the case. And that's not Shemitic. They're not Afro-Asiatic. One, they don't grow afros and they don't have Afro features. They may be Asiatic, but they're not Afro-Asiatic in any sense of the word. I mean, how they're not. Can't say Asiatic or well, yeah, because I mean Caucasian. So to an extent, they're Asiatic, but they're not Afro-Asiatic. They're not Shemitic people. They are not. You know, they are absolutely not. So it's just a pet peeve of mine that gets me like this is just wrong. Anyway, sorry for my tangents. Chapter damn Roman numerals. Chapter 8, I think. The Buddhist and the Sakai. In a former chapter, it was intimated that the Israelites might have been classed by Herodotus among, which they were, amongst the tribes of Media under the name Buddhi, a name that reappears in his account of the tribes of Scythia. We now proceed to show that the Sakai were Buddhists and Hebrews. Bang, boop, bop. Look at that. Look at that. Another dang Greek classifying us. But again, look, applying the name Buddhi to the Israelites. Hebrews. Yeah, Israelites. We have seen from the facts where he stated that a peculiar people known as the Sacs or Sakai and Buddhi arrived in India at a period about 100 years after the return of the Jews from Assyria to Palestine. We know that they did not return from. We know, yeah, no. So they definitely didn't return from that. So nah, these people were mixed up with the Yavanas who have been identified with the Greeks and left by Alexander to garrison the banks of the Indus, and who long occupied a naval station at the mouth of the river Carpathia. Pardon me. Supposed to be the present Tata, so the Tata River. This took place about 325 years BC. We know that by some untold circumstances, Alexander was prevented from invading the Sakai, or at least from prevailing over them, as he did over the Bactrians. Hmm, interesting information, but we do know that he did, well, they were occupying Jerusalem and Judea at the time, unfortunately, so it seems to be a bit different. Well, it is also stated that many of the Israelites did flee from Jerusalem and Judea during that time frame when they were occupying Greece. Not all of them left, but a good majority of them did. And also a good lot of them were also slain, unfortunately. The Sakai were then a distinct people, and their knowledge and influence appeared to have been employed by Alexander in his incursion into India. It is said that certain Sakai, being famous for the use of the bow and also as skillful as horsemen, were of great use to his army. Yeah, the traitors. Ah, traitorous. Black Boule, perhaps. Yeah, maybe. Anyway, with these remarkable people, a new religion appears to have been introduced to India. This religion has been ever since known as Buddhism, said to be first taught in its present form by Sakya. Now, Buddha is said to have been born in BC 618. So 618 BC. It is remarkable that this Buddha is called Maga a Magian by the Burmas. So yeah, we're gonna go into this latter part later, but initially I want to talk about again that name Buddhi. They are calling Israelites Buddhi, and that the new religion being introduced into India by them was called Buddhism. So the Buddhi people being the Sakai being the Saxons being the Israelites. Keeping that equation, you know, because that means that to Herodotus, he called them the Buddhi, but also to the Chinese at the time, possibly being the Han Chinese there, or maybe, or perhaps they were calling them the Yushi. So keep that in mind. Two different names by two different peoples about the same people. Keep that in mind. Ooh, pardon me. Syncretism of the sutras. It has been stated in Zechariah that many of the Israelites would go on to make their own laws and statutes that were false and unnecessary as is. So that first bullet point kind of right there kind of explains the fact that a lot of these sutras or teachings of Buddhism are kind of redundant and unnecessary, or just false in terms of the whole rebirth thing. Because it's just retellings of the scripture in different ways, But they go on and do it, so it makes a lot of sense. Honestly, just thinking about it and understanding it, it makes perfect sense. At least my opinion. The Grand Prophet of the Sakai had introduced the teachings of Buddhism into India first and foremost. It was corrupted scriptural teachings that had traces of Brahmi, elemental worship, and other pagan texts. Keeping that in mind, this purported to have this is purported to have occurred in the 3rd century BC. So yeah, so widespread Buddhism didn't happen until the 1st century BC into the 1st century AD, but this goes as far back as the 3rd century BC according to the text, which makes a lot of sense. Now reading the book, page 135, characteristics, traces, and names. They felt that law too broad and embracing for their libertine spirits, and then wrote statutes for themselves 1,000 times broader and as formal, as false, and as useless as they were indefinite. So this is honestly, with this new understanding of Buddhism, a good majority of it is applicable, or this sentence right here is applicable to the good majority of Buddhism. I had that backwards. My bad. So yeah, I'm not trying to come off insulting or mean or condescending or any of that, but it's like this is quite literally addressing Buddhism. Honestly, this is outward. This is addressing it. Like, hey, a lot of this is kind of redundant and broad. Like why are you doing this? According to Zechariah, this may be regarded as a description of the religion founded by the Grand Prophet. See, look at that. This may be regarded as a description. So they were talking about Buddhism, founded by the Grand Prophet of the Sakai race who introduced Buddhism into India. This religion is a mixture of truths of patriarchal dispensation with the forms of heathenism which they were familiar, and especially with the higher idolatries of the Brahmins and of the worshippers of the elements, making of the mixture that form of Buddhism now prevalent in the East. So that part right there is just saying I dropped some stuff. All right, they're according to Zechariah and how this guy is seeing it. They're essentially addressing Buddhism. Like they are talking about it straight up. It's not directly mentioned, but with the understanding and with research, they're talking about Buddhism. So all this applies to it. Like I just read it with the bullet points over here. But going off the book, they're talking about Buddhism straight up. They are talking about it. It's applicable. In the history or chronicles of Kashmir, as recorded by native authorities, we find that the Hindus date the commencement of a remarkable era amongst them from the time when the Prince Asoka abolished Brahminical rites and substituted those of Jina Sasana. We know that the new religion of Asoka was that of the Sakas or the Sakai. And here we find that the religion called Sasana, so that we have evidence from native authority that Sasana signifies what pertains to the Sakai, and that the fact equivalent to our word Saxon, as we surmised when speaking of the Parthian dynasty named the Sasani, which extended its power so widely over India. The Sakas, then known as the Sasani or Saxons, conveyed the religion into the country of Asoka. There is nothing insuperable to this opinion in the dates that have been hitherto established. The Sakian era appears to have commenced about 307 years before Christo, Krusty Man, before this fucking guy. So this appears to have happened 3 centuries before the Krusty Man, hence 3rd century BC. Ah, okay, interesting. Moving forward, fucking a part of my language, crusty dude over here. Yeah. Anyway, moving further into book because this is a lot of stuff in the book. Yes. Oh, what do you mean? Ephraim's sin of idolatry. I'm gonna start here because this part's kind of cut off, but yeah. There is another Bhutan at the northeast of Hindustan and another Abor or Chabur immediately adjacent, and these regions are in character very similar to those of Kurdistan. This itself is remarkable, but it would be still more so if we could discover traces of Israelites in this neighborhood. And also, this we shall, but it will enlarge our view of the marvelous proceedings of divine providence if we endeavor to obtain some glimpses of their transit to that land. So if we could see some of the ruins and architecture here, it would provide more basis in understanding that the Israelites were there, is what it's saying. The only distinct intimation of the exodus of the Israelites from Assyria which we possess assures us that they went out under the influence of religious zeal, with the purpose of separating themselves from heathenism. We suppose that they attempted to effect this distinct standing under a name not recognized as connecting them with Jews, and that they journeyed into the regions northeast of the Caspian, hoping to establish themselves in a religion in some land in that direction. They go forth in vain hope, they depart further and further from the place of God's manifestation to their fathers. They turn away from Judea and Jerusalem, perhaps believing that its walls will never again be erected, or that the glory of Haya Haya, not no fucking, or pardon my language, folks, my bad, not this name, but the glory of Haya Haya or Hayah Hayah will never more appear there. The temple was not dear to them when in their own land, and in their rebellion against the seed of David, they rejected the hopes which the Spirit and the prophets had associated with the royal line. It was their temper always to build temples at their own discretion and to erect altars to gods of their own choosing, upon high places and in groves. As Hosea, their especial prophet, told them, because Ephraim hath made many altars to sin, altars shall be unto him to sin. Chapter 9, verse 11, I think. Israelites, that is, the 10 tribes, or 12 tribes actually, seem to have revolted in their confidence of blessing and connection with Ephraim. Hence their name Ephraimites. The birthright was Joseph's. Reuben's birthright was given to Joseph. Reuben Yeah, what he did. Oh boy, we'll go into that later. Judah prevailed above his brethren, and of him came the chief ruler. But the birthright was Joseph's. First Chronicles, First Chronicles chapter 5, 1 and 2, or verses 1 and 2, I think. The Jews or Judeans are named as distinct from Beni Israel in Second Kings chapter 26, verse 6. I think that is. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. What could these accomplish except the establishment of some new form of idolatry? We might probably, with great propriety, adopt the description given of them by Zechariah, verse 6, as especially applicable to this people now. They hide the woman within the ephah. They conceal true religion under a mysterious disguise. They cover her down with the weight of lead, being carried away as on the wings of a stork by two false forms of religion, in which the natural affections and instincts alone lift the soul up between heaven and earth, elevated by fancies, but without a faith in which to rest. They hurry away from the land of promise, burying the truth under a dull and heavy and dead idolatry. They build temples to falsehood and attempts to honor God by disobedience to his law. Huh. And then you got this little piece right here. Hard to read. The reference to wings reminds us of the Syrian and Egyptian emblem of power and protection. The wings of a stork especially signify or significant, as that bird was celebrated by the ancients for its affection to its parents. The word translated stork means pious, confiding, kind, loving, and applying to that form of religion in which veneration and even adoration of parents constitutes a remarkable feature. Amongst the Buddhists of China and elsewhere, they regard their departed parents as guardian deities to whom they look for blessings. It is remarkable that the prophet states that the ephah shall be born into the land of Shinar and built there upon her own base. So we know that Shinar is China, and we know that parent worship and deification is ancestor worship, and that is sinful, and it is a form of idolatry, which is wrong. So here's we can say they started done goofing up. And in regards to the hide the woman within the ephah, they are probably talking about her, the the personification of whoredom, that being, that fallen. Ugh. Probably talking about her more than likely. And two false forms of religion. Hmm. That could be a reference to Christianity and Islam. More than likely, that's my guess right there. Probably Christianity and Islam is what it's referring to, as on wings of a stork. That actually makes a lot of sense. At least this is my opinion. That's what I think they're talking about. So yeah, okay, alrighty. Moving on to the next. Or actually, before I do move off, they're talking about the sins of Ephraim. Now, I more likely, as it stated, Ephraim in particular, his children, were high idolaters and they loved idolatry, building temples and monasteries of sin to their sin, and disobeying the Most High. So, keep that in mind, you know, that they were very idolatrous. And how we even see that nowadays in terms of Christianity, you got a lot of, sadly, you got a lot of Ephraimites, or Ephraim Judeans wearing a lot of crosses, or that damn star, that demon, what was his name, Rumfan, that damn star. Ugh. It just, you shouldn't be wearing that anyway. But again, it goes. It's an example that even nowadays in modern times, they are still idolaters, whether or not they know it or they don't think it's idolatry, when they should acknowledge it as it is idolatry, whether or not they actually agree to it or not. But yeah, keep that in mind is what I'm saying. Just keep that in mind. On to the next. We 54 minutes. Idolatry in the high places of Ephraim continued. Ephraimites in particular had been notorious for creating and setting idols upon high places. This can be seen as mountains and hills that house what we call monasteries today. Them facing judgment from the Ishi could have possibly been in the form of being removed from their lands by invaders, such as Hamitic Dravidians, being what we call Indians, Nepalese, Burmese, and East or West Asians in the modern day. So again, kicked out by them. Yep. Let's read the page. Page 103, chapter in the Saxon race. Oh, where? Oh, pardon me, my bad, folks. I yawned. So hereafter they shall go and still serve idols. They talk of going to some high place called the Bama, were they not always going to Bama, for is not that the name of the places in which they were constantly committing idolatry with steady devotion? So it seems like they're going to a place called Bama and just making idol galore, basically. Ooh wee. Yikes. Go, says the prophet, go to your desired Bama, serve your idols where then when there as you do now. But no, the Eloha may possibly okay, but no Eloha whose name you pollute will judge you there. So they're talking about the Most High. Let me just say the Most High. Apologies, forgive me. But no, the Most High whose name you pollute, blaspheme my great name, whose name you pollute will judge you there. We may possibly see more of the meaning of this Bama as we proceed. We must not here lose sight of the significant fact that the prophet foretells that though these Israelites desire to be like the heathen, they should not be so. That which cometh into your mind shall not be at all that ye say we will be as the heathen, as the families of the countries to serve wood and stone. Chapter 20, verse 32, I think. I'm not sure which one they're particularly talking about, but you look it up. They are to be distinct from ordinary idolaters in their idolatry, not actually worshipping wood and stone as gods. According to the best chronology we can get on the subject, it appears that the prediction of their exodus from Assyria was delivered about the year 594 BC, or 7 years after the captivity of Joachim. Compare Ezra 1-2 with 21. I could be wrong. 2 years after the vision on the banks of Chabar, now Kabir, the Scythians had been expelled, but a few years before, for Cyaxares I reigned 40 years for Herodotus 106 and died 600 BC. Soon after his conquest of Nineveh, which I'm pretty sure that's Canaan, which he undertook immediately subsequent to their expulsion, there was doubtless sympathy between the Scythians and those Ephraimites who were given up to idolatry and the worship of high places, where they were alike prone to intoxication and famous for the use of the bow. In Persian, Sakai, in which Sicilian was synonymous with glutton and drunkard. Oh wow. Which are terms applied by the prophet to the house of Isaac, and if the histories may be trusted, the Saxon branch of the Scythian family have always taken so very kindly to their food and to their drink as they worship their gods with gluttony and drunkenness. So there is no Scythian family. I don't know what they're talking about here. It seems like an insert to wanting to be the children of Jacob. So I don't know where they're getting this from. But we do have a problem with gluttony and drunkard in terms of our community. And also the fact that you also have, again, a lot of Ephraimites who often mimic the heathen, or even nowadays with a lot of so-called brothers and sisters getting tattoos emblems and medallions and shit like that. Part of my language, and just basically copying what they do, essentially. Taking on a culture that is not our own, being an American. Yeah, American. So taking on their culture, granted, you could argue that we did invent the culture, which is true to an extent, but at the same time, you can see the parallels with this in the old days and with this nowadays. You can see the parallel with Ephraimites being like the heathen. You can see it. Just keep that in mind, yeah. But talking about building and setting idols upon high places. So you can see this as mountains and hills where we build monasteries, and we know that mountaintops are sacred. We shouldn't be building monasteries up there as is. You know that we shouldn't do that in the first place. They're sacred, but yet you have Ephraim building them on high places and setting upon idols and things like that. It's interesting to think about. Just keep that in mind. Something that we shouldn't be doing, or we weren't supposed to do. Now we're going to talk about the bald and shaven in Scripture. It is mentioned in Isaiah chapter 3, verse 24, Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 18, and Amos chapter 8, verse 10, that baldness was seen as signs of degradation, mourning, and affliction. So they were often, so literally, it was just seen in a negative fashion. Negative fashion in the forms of you're mourning, you're looking up, messed up, or you're dealing with something, or you're afflicted with baldness. Like, all right, there goes your head, man. Boom, you're bald. So it's like it wasn't seen in a positive light, more or less. Aside from mourning and even then, that's not really positive. So keep that in mind. The king Sagara had driven out the Sakai into Nepal, Assam, and Bhutan, and had destroyed their institutes in order to have their heads partly shaven. So back in the time, we weren't meant to cut our hair because you're not supposed to cut the corners of your head. And whereas these guys more or less were forced to have their hair cut, or they forced them to cut their hair, and we know that it was seen as signs of degradation, mourning, and affliction, unrelated, but especially with the Romans, they were Edom. They would cut hair as a sign of it's it's not just domination, it's yeah, I guess you could say humiliation. Yeah, so it's something like that. It was very impudent to have your hair cut. It was very bad. With this happening, it is the basis for as to why many monks today have shaven bald heads, also knowing and understanding its signs within the Torah. So again, we're not supposed to cut our hair and not do any of that. That's bad. We're supposed to do that, but yet we have a whole, or it's part of the culture, or actually, this is one of the parallels of being like the heathen. We cut our hair when we should not cut our hair, such as shape ups, fades, all that quote unquote fancy shit. We're not supposed to be doing that. It's one thing to cut your hair out of genuine need to, in case if you don't want to deal with it. But like we do it as a fashion statement when it's supposed to be in terms of health, or we do it so lightly when it should be taken into consideration that we shouldn't do it. So keep that in mind. Is all I'm saying. Okay. This is an interesting piece right here, but characteristic traces and names, that chapter name, page 137. Yeah, no. Anyway, visit them and that Moses himself came amongst them to teach them the worship of the one Ishi Elohim. So I'm going to go find that page and probably make a video on that because that was interesting how they claim that they were visited by Moses and Isaac, I think it said. But all these remarkable traditions are easily reconciled with the fact that they were really instructed in certain ideas peculiar to the religion and histories of Israelites, and that the people that thus taught them were known under the name of Sakai and had came from Turkestan, the country of the Sakai. I'm gonna look at that up, Turkestan. That's different. That's not Turkmenistan. I'm talking about Turkestan. So I'm gonna look that up. It is clear from the records concerning the king Sagara that he drove out the Malekjas and the Sakas into Nepal, Assam, and Bhutan, and endeavored to re-establish the old Brahminical religion. So this guy right here, no Israelite, not sure if he was could be a Hamite. Either he's a Hamite or he's Japhet or maybe some other Shem. But he came in and wanted to reestablish the old Brahminical religion. So he a pagan, he a heathen. Now it is not trying to be disrespectful, but quite literally what he is. Now it is worthy of a special remark that this king, when he destroyed the institutes of the Malaysias, foreigners in his kingdom, and while all the hair was ordered to be removed from the heads of the Yavanas and the Kambogas, while the Paradas were compelled to wear beards, these were mixed up with the Sakas, and though differing somewhat in their forms of worship, they were all Buddhists. So, huh. So, with this understanding that he ordered the destruction of the institutes of the Malaysians, the foreigners in his kingdom, and honest technicality and understanding, the Yavanis or the Yavanas, the Kamboigas, the Paradas, and the Sakas will all be considered foreigners. So he didn't just destroy all of the temples that were of Buddhist in origin, or no, saying that they were all Buddhists, or they actually, he destroyed most of them that were Buddhist in origin. He had them destroyed, which meant that if he was destroying those institutes, you can imagine that a lot of the texts, works, and arts or artwork that were present, or even like I hate to say it, idols and statues, were also destroyed along with them. Hence why you have so little evidence of what they look like today. I'm going to show you some images of what we do have, but yeah. So, and also saying that the Yavanas, the Kamboigas, the Paradas were compared, beards and have their hair cut. These were all mixed up with the Sakas, and though differing somewhat in their forms of worship, meaning they're different religions, so you had pagans along with Buddhists, or no Israelites. They were all Buddhists. If the Sakas or Sakai or were Israelites, here was a literal fulfillment of prophecy with respect to them. Baldness and beardlessness. So even cutting the beard, baldness and beardlessness were signs of mourning amongst the Hebrews. But the prophets declare that in their apostate state, to be bald and shaven shall be the signs of their degradation. So being bald is a sign of degradation. It's not a good sign to be bald. You shouldn't be bald. Unless you're wearing a turban and you purposely cut your own hair for that sole reason. But you shouldn't be bald or your hair degradation. Instead of well set hair, baldness. Isaiah chapter 3 verse 24. Baldness shall be upon all their heads. Ezekiel chapter 8 or chapter 7 verse 18 and Amos chapter 8 verse 10. These tyrannical orders were endured and submitted to with a religious pride and as proof of unflinching attachment to their own faith by those subjected to them. We should naturally expect that these peculiarities, thus at the first despotically enforced by this bluff Harry of the East, to be afterwards preserved amongst the marked tribes as honorable badges of their faith. That this precisely what we find at the present day, that the partial shaving of the head is retained as a peculiar mark amongst most of the Buddhists. So more or less, nowadays this is went from being seen as a sign of degradation, mourning, and affliction to something showcasing a mark of their faith as, alright, well, if my head's partly shaved this way, this shows to you that this is the mark of Buddhism, or that this marks me as a Buddhist, which is popular with the Hamites who are living there right now. So yeah, like you see like a lot of quote unquote Tibetan or Chinese monks, Han Chinese monks, they do this. They partly shave their head or they completely shave it. Same with their beards. If they can grow beards or facial hair, their mustache, they shave it all off as signs of this marks me as a Buddhist. So this essentially became, again, this is corrupted in the sense that you shouldn't cut your hair at all. You should have your hair. You shouldn't be bald. Unless you intentionally do it for personal reasons that aren't There are reasons to justify why you should do it, but not in the way that many of us actively think that we should do it. But this showcases that you're not supposed to do it. This is just marking that, hey, this guy has an affliction, or he's in a state of degradation, or this guy's mourning. So this has been twisted around big time. Okay, now on to the Saxons, Sakai, and Buddhism. Pardon me. An hour and 10 minutes. Buddhism can be traced back to the originator being named Sakya, or Sakya, or Sakya. This religion would go on to transform mainland Asia and bring about the era of the Sakas. Israelites having inhabited northern India, Nepal, China, Tibet, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan. Okay, now this is a repeat from the last page. With these remarkable people, actually, this is one of the older pages. This is just a full page of it. I'll just read from the with. With these remarkable people, a new religion appears to have been introduced into India. This religion has been ever since known as Buddhism and said to be first taught in its present form by Sakya. Now, Buddha is said to have been born 618 BC. It is remarkable that this Buddha is called Majid by the Burmas. Pardon me. Now, the Burmas. And in Burma, Arakan, Ceylon, and hold up, wait a minute. This Buddha is called Majian, and by the Burmas, it's called Maga a Majin. So he's called Maga or Majin by the Burmas. And in Burma, Arakan, and Ceylon, and Siam, the sacred language of Buddhism is called the language of Mags or the Magi. So there's a connection to Siam being here in terms of what they were calling them. Is indeed the priests of the Persians, Bactrians, Chorasmians, and Aryans, and Sakai are equally called Magi, and described as so many tribes descended from the Sakas. Now, it's safe to say that if they're saying that these tribes have descended from the Sakas, that'd be incorrect because they're not. We no, no. So Persians are just another Shemitic group. Bactrians are possibly Greek, so no. Chorasmians, I don't even know what that is, unfortunately. Aryans, we know that those are just Germanic, so no. So I don't know what they're talking about here, but nah. To connect the Sakai, with the East, to connect the Sakai of the East with those of the West, we observe that the White Island England, Sakam or Saxum, as pronounced by our Saxon ancestors, is stated in. Oh, wait. What do you mean? That the Purana named Varaha to have been in the possession of the Sacs or Sakai at an early period. From the origin of the religion of Buddha commenced a new era in the East named the era of the Sakas. Hence why we infer that Sikya or Sakaya belonged to this people. They proceeded from the north into Kashmir. We have shown that a people of this name were recognized by the ancient geographers and historians as a tribe of Scythians residing in the north of Kashmir, and we have found some reasons to imagine that these Sakas were sprung from the house of Isaac, a division of Israelites who did not return from Assyria to Samaria. We now proceed, if possible, to discover any additional reasonings for the supposings of these people too. Hmm. So this seems to be like a lot of unnecessary inserts and information, or just misinformation, as I will call it. But I'm not sure who this Sakaya figure is, but he could very well be within the Torah, perhaps, maybe, or he's in some other historical source. We know that the Burmi or the Burma people were calling the Burmese were calling them Magi. We know that he had introduced Buddhism into northern India and China, at least in that time period. He was born in 618 BC, so I'm gonna look that up later on. Ooh wee. On to the next. The Traders of Maccabees. Oh, sorry, folks. I'm a little tired. In the book of Maccabees, it is mentioned how renegades of Israel abandoned the Holy Covenant and joined themselves to the Gentiles during the reign of Antiochus Epiphanes, building a gymnasium in Jerusalem. Epiphanes had originally been named Mithridates. Now, there's I looked that name up, and there's I think two or three other guys named Mithridates, or they spelled it's spelled a little differently with Mithridates or Mithridates. It's the same. It's the same name, spelled slightly different. But I think one of these people were perhaps overlapping. You know, Antiochus Epiphanes, because bleh, oh my goodness, it is explained on the page here. It details how some of the Sakai peoples have been employed by the Yavanas, who would be the Greeks, the tribe of Javan. This happening during the time of Alexander, Seleucus Nicator, and Antiochus Soter. It is also stated that the Yavanas are European as well. So, huh? Okay. So again, interesting to say in the least that this the origin of Buddhism is also happening within the similar time frame or the timeline of the Traders of the Maccabees. So this could very well be pretty recent, since we know that also in the book of Daniel states how they added 1,000 years to the timeline. So I'm not sure exactly when this could have happened, but this is very recent. We'll say that. The Yavanas reached Orissa through Kashmir. I'm reading off the page now. Kashmir and Delhi. We now, on recurring to the history of Kashmir, we find that the Malekjas, of whom the Sakas were one class. So, like I said in the last slide, I remember reading it, but not really reading it, like thinking too hard about. But like I said, the Sakas were under the term Malekjas, which just means foreigner, which means that some of their institutes, Sakai institutes, were destroyed by King Sagara. Going back to the last slide, onto this slide, or the slide before that slide, who were one class, came to the country from Scythia and mingled with the Yavanas. Buchanan says that the Yavanas were understood to be Europeans. Huh. Yeah, well, look at that. So, the English, British, or the Anglos, European, so it bang boom bop, so they're not Saxons, they're just Anglos. It's just a little tidbit anyway. The term Yavana seems to have puzzled Oriental scholars. So the Orient. Hmm. But then we consider that the Yavanas and Jabins were synonymous. We are at once conducted to we are once conducted to an explanation, and in turn, as a matter of course, too. Oh wait, pardon me. To the country of Javan or Jabin, which includes great part of Asia Minor, the Isles of Greece, and all of Ionia. Ionia, in fact, is the only another form of the name Yavana. And thus Rawlinson, finding the word Yavana in the arrow-headed inscriptions of Behustan, does not scruple to translate it Ionians. To associate this name with the veterans of Alexander's army and the Seleucidae is natural, and we have reason to believe that the history of Alexander's invasion, that the troops of the Sakai were in his pay and among the bravest of his companions. So the Maccabees is talking about the traders right here. So these would be the traders. If they're employed by the Seleucidae and they're also invading the lands over there, their own land, these are traders. These would be the traders. From the history of Alexander's invasion, that the troops of the Sakai were in his pay and among the bravest of his companions. In fact, the Sakai were so well known in Alexander's time as brave cavalry and bowmen that the term seems to have been adopted to designate the best mercenary forces. So we betrayed our own, basically, fucking, pardon my language, we basically dang mercenaries. The domination or the dominion of Seleucus Nicator and Antiochus Soter in Bactria extended over the Sakas at first, but was afterwards destroyed by them and the Goths, who forthwith unitedly ruled over the whole of the provinces extending from Bactria to the Indus. Okay, so here they're going to talk about the mixtures of the Sacs with the Javan, as it explains. Here we cannot but observe the wonderful providence by which it is so ordered that the descendants of Japheth, brought ready armed and trained by Alexander into India, would there meet and sustain the Sakas and the Malekshas from Scythia, and thus advance the fulfillment of prophecy. It is also interesting, and perhaps not without importance, that the nations of India, at an early period of their history, were accustomed to designate the Western world by the name Javan, who was representative and the grandson of Japhet and the founder of the race that is now the most influential on the planet, or the world, as they fucking say. Where the fuck that is, probably language. So that right there, they're basically, I think they're referencing the prophecy of how he will sow the seed of Ephraim with that of Judah, and will sow that seed with that the seed of man, or the seed of beast, or what have you. They're probably referencing that prophecy, perhaps, or the fact that again, they're referencing the Maccabean rebellion and the revolt happening. Like, the book of Maccabees is happening around this time right here. They're talking. This is all this right here that I just said. They're talking about the book of Maccabees, the invasion of Bactria, the dominion of Bactria by Seleucus Nicator and Antiochus Soter, the Seleucidae, like anti. They're talking about this time period right here. They are, and this is just a theory. But I think Antiochus Epiphanes and Antiochus Soter may be one and the same. They might be the same person, or that whose name Mithridates is the same person. This is all happening within the same time period. So watching my last video and seeing this part right here, this is the book of Maccabees happening right here. This is what they're talking about. The traitors, or the traitors of Maccabees, renegades of Israel, joined onto the Gentiles during the reign of Antiochus Epiphanes, and that Antiochus Seleucidae, or Antiochus Soter, had dominion over Bactria. And we know that the Yushi, or Israelites, the Sakai, had seized and took Bactria and were then conquered by. So it's like it. This is happening in that time period. So the book of Maccabees is more or less. This happens around the migration period of the Yushi leaving or being forced out of China by the Shangnu and going into Bactria and taking Bactria, and then encountering the Greeks who are invading Bactria. Bang, boop, bop. So the book of Maccabees happens in that same time period. What does this have to do with Buddhism? Well, we know that Herodotus, the Greek, were calling the Sacs, the Sakai, the Buddhi people. So, bang, boop, bop. It is happening in the same time frame. Same time frame. My bad. I'm getting everywhere. Now we're going to start getting into some images, because the last video had like no images whatsoever. My apologies. So let's get into some images. So this is a 2nd century AD Kushan relief, meaning I'm going to some art piece. That's what relief means, more likely, or something that was part of a wall, perhaps, or some it was art. The center figure has small coils, circlets of hair that is visible and afro-like, if you will. We've discussed how the Yushi funded the Kushan Empire and patronized the Mahayana Buddhism. We also know that many of the institutes and monasteries were destroyed along with art and texts. So this is probably one of the very few surviving, I imagine, art pieces or artworks of depicting the people in that time frame, depicting the people then. Because you know that King Sagara had them destroyed. Or at least in India, or wherever he was in that time frame, he came and had them destroyed, wherever that guy was. So there's not much left. And I tried to blow up the image, make it look bigger and fit on the slide, but hopefully again, I'm really hoping the mouse is visible. But you look at the center figure right here, the guy in the middle, looking closely at his hair, you can see small circlets, circles and circlets of hair. And they're tight, they're tightly packed up. It's not wavy, you know, it's not wavy hair. It's tightly packed up. So it's like, who else has this kind of hair? Uh, Semitic people, Afro-Asiatic people, and we know that the Yushi are Afro-Asiatic because they are Israelites. So they're one and the same people. So, and you can even look and see here that the nose is broken off. They broke that man's nose off. Her nose is partially broken off, partially sanded down or removed, and it's broken up. But broke off his nose completely. But you can see the fullness of his lips, the afro hair. He probably had the nose, probably had a big old nose right here. But you can see that this is an Afro-looking figure. This is an Afro-Asiatic man. This is a Shemitic man. This is a dude you see on the street. You know, there's a there's a melanated man right here. This is melanated. Melanated in the sense of Afro-Asiatic. You know, Indians are melanated, but they're not us. So you know, Afro-Asiatic, coiled, tightly packed hair, fullness of his lips, full lips. It's an Afro man right here. He's Afro. He's an Afro dude. On to the next images again. Now the Bodhisattva Padmapani. I'm pretty sure I got this off of this is one of the sources I got this off of. I screenshot it. Cave 1 in the painting, his tan body, darkened only by locks of curly hair, is delicate and elegant. He is adorned with pearls, amethyst, and other attributes of traditional Indian jewelry. On his head sits a magnificent crown, which at some point was most likely colored in extreme detail, but over time, part of me has faded. His eyes are lowered in a meditative state. His calm, spiritual face sets the tone and mood of the room. In his right hand, he holds a lotus blossom, which may represent his spiritual awakening. So, according now, this is a description is from Britannica. According to Britannica, he is described as having fullness of his lips. So he got full lips. I mean, who else has full lips? Come on, seriously, like, come on, like it, come on. Fullness of his lips, the slender shape and nose with sinuous, which means curving eyebrows, curving eyebrows, and almond-shaped eyes. The majority of Afro Americans have almond-shaped eyes, because you know almond-shaped eyes are they're Asiatic, and we're an Afro-Asiatic people. So you put two and two together, bang boom bop. In this painting, he holds the lotus flower, which is said to represent spiritual awakening, and is also prevalent in the scripture. The fact that the lotus and the lily are also related as well. So both the lotus and the lily are related in terms of genes. They are closely related families of flowers. They're related because they bear strong resemblance to each other. You know, and they're prevalent in scripture. And the reason why I say it's relevant to again this topic and video is the fact that again this is a Bahitava Padmapani, northern India. This is a figure who more than likely probably existed because there is a depiction of him. So he might have actually existed as just a regular man, regular possible. Oh, more than likely Israelite, no, or Sakapi person. You know, I could be wrong, and this just could be a representation of just some mythical figure. But again, he has Afro-Asiatic features, locks of curly hair. It would say wavy hair if his hair was wavy. Like Indians, they have wavy hair. Many of them don't have coiled hair unless they're like mixed, but most of them they have wavy hair. Asians, if they're mixed to some extent with Japhet, speaking of Han Chinese Hamites, they have wavy hair. They don't have tightly packed curls. Unlike Buddhists, they have tightly packed curls. Like their hair is curly. It curls. It coils. You know. Also tan. I'm just saying, like there's 250 shades of brown. So I mean, one of them shades. And sinuous curving eyebrows. A lot of his eyebrows they curve in that fashion, or they curve naturally. You know, we don't have to really do them at all. So next, Oh yeah, the lotus in scripture. The lotus is seen as a symbol, sign, got that backwards, of transformation and spiritual enlightenment. It is said to represent the ideas of purification and eternal journey of oneself. It is mentioned in the book of Job, uh, chapter 40, verse 21. He lieth under the shady trees and the covert of the reeds and fens. Or I think that meant ferns. Strong's Concordance details that under the shady trees meaning Strong's Concordance details that under the shady trees means is that a kind of a lotus. Now, looking up, some sources are going to say they're talking about a tree, but we know that this is happening in Asia. This is over in Asia. Like the majority of the scripture happens in Asia outright until the exile or until Assyrian exile, and towards the end of it, this is happening majority in Asia. So the only lotus I think they're talking about, at least in my opinion, is this. They're talking about this kind of lotus. You know, that's what they're talking about, the lotus flower. Or this is the blossom of the lotus, the flower being the whole plant. And the reason why they say it's a sign of transformation, spiritual enlightenment, is the fact that the roots are in muddy water beneath, but the stem and the flower head grows out past the water and rises above it, signifying spiritual transformation and enlightenment. I think that's the gist of the meaning behind it, you know. But we're gonna go on to the next slide. But the lotus and the lily are very related in terms of appearance. Because look at this. Look how, look at it. I'm gonna go back. Can I go back? Oh, whoops. My bad, folks. You see the lotus right here? Now you look at the lily. They don't look exactly alike, but the similarities are very strong. Like if you didn't know your flowers at all, you'd probably think that they're one and the same. I'm just saying, because you have some plant variety, you have some of their varieties that look very, they look alike. Like I'm talking like the same color and everything. And you can see with the water, the lily, in particular the water lily, it grows in a similar fashion to a lotus, and they're both in Asia. You know. Now the lily in Scripture, it is often noted that the lily flower is regarded as a symbol and sign of purity, innocence, and rebirth. It is to represent spiritual renewal and hope in darker times. It is referenced in the Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 1. I am the rose of Sharon, and the lily of the valleys. And in Hosea, chapter 14, verse 5. I will be as the dew unto Israel, and he shall grow as the lily, and cast forth his roots as Lebanon. So we know, or it is known, that the lily and lotus are very prevalent in Scripture. And we know that they're also very prevalent in Buddhism. And we know that Buddhism, at its core, is derived from scriptural teachings that have been paganized. Hence why I'm showing these two, because they're connected to Buddhism. And also they're connected to the Scripture, because they're mentioned by name in Scripture outright. You know? Just a bit of information. And also the fact that the Bhatsava I showed you, Padmapani, he was holding a lotus flower. So keep that in mind, you know? Now, let's get on to images, baby. I'ma just say straight up, I I shouldn't have to say anything because y'all can literally see it. I don't think I've ever seen a Han Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Asian, East Asian person, or even an Indian, Nepalese, Burmese person look like these two. They don't. Like, let's look at the features straight up. This man got mini pat. This man has a mini patty. Got fullness of his lips, strong nose, and he has almond eyes. This look like an Afro dude right here. Like he has like the tight circlets of hair signifies Afro Asiatic hair. This man got this is a Shemite, has Shemitic hair. No other race has hair like this. Hamites don't have this kind of hair, neither do Japhetites. Japhetites and Hamites have wavy or straight hair. Their hair doesn't coil and grow into an afro. It does not. And even with those certain Japhet or Hamite tribes, their hair it may grow into it may look afro-like, but once it gets long enough, it falls down. It doesn't grow out and coil up. It falls from its own weight. So again, they don't have people that look like this. They don't look like this. They don't. Again, you have the fullness of the lips. Half the time, their lips aren't full. They don't have hair like this. Their lips are not like this. They don't look like this. And just getting into the next image right here, I can understand the pronounced nose bridge. That's true to an extent, but at the same time, I mean, look at the sinuous. I feel like I've seen these two outside before more than once, easily. And looking at this one in particular, look at the hair. These are Buddhas. And remember how we just went over the fact that Buddhas or Buddhists or the people in general are the Buddhi, and the Buddhi were another name for the Sakai or the Sakai, and the Sakai are also meaning Saxon, and that in turn means Israelite. These are Israelites of the ancient days. I'm sorry, like that. Look at the hair. Look at the people. Look at the face. Look at the coils of the hair. Look at that. That's not a hat. That's straight. That's hair. They're depicting how the hair was looking in that time. Tightly packed curls, both. The sinuous eyebrows, the lobes. Look at the lips. Look at them lips. Like, look at them. The fullness of the lips. I've never seen an Asian with lips like this. Neither have I seen it. They don't have lips. They don't look like this. They don't. They straight up do not. And Asiatic eyes. Like, come on. The evidence is right there. Like, I just shown you all this information, and now you get to see actual depictions of them. And again, look at them tightly packed curls. Look at how the hair is styled. Look at that. Sinuous eyes, almond eyes, the fullness of the lips and big old noses. Look at them nostril flares. Look at them flare ups. Look at that. You can see it. Like, look at that. It's Afro-Asiatic. That's an Afro-Asiatic looking person. They have the features. Like, come on. I don't have to explain this. And look at what they do to some of them, or how some of them are just found supposedly. If they can't, smash them. Pretty sure this is just me assuming and having an opinion. I could very well be wrong, but he probably had a big Negro-looking nose, and they probably, or maybe part of the destruction from what that King Cigar was doing. He was going on destroying institutes, and if he's destroying institutes and monasteries, he's going to be destroying artwork, paintings, sculptures, and texts. They're going to get destroyed along with it. Like that makes logically that makes sense. Like, why would you just destroy the building, but keep all the artifacts and items in the building intact? No, you're gonna mess it up. You're gonna destroy it too. Like, it's the logical trend of thought to establish Brahminical rights and bring back their old pagan practice. Yo, we gotta destroy all the traces of this, so that way they can't. Because fuck them. Pardon my language. That's literally what they do. But the Negro features are there. Negro features. Like, going back to the last one, Negro features. These are Shemitic. These are Shemitic features. Like, looking at the hair, Shemitic features. The face, Shemitic. Shemitic features right here. Shemitic. Now, this is no. This is just the Shemitic person in general. Shemite. This is just a Shemitic person right here. My bad, folks. But just a Shemite, Shem. So this, just in general, I found this on the web. But again, Afro-Asiatic. Like, look at the eyes, the facial structure, the hair. I know I could be wrong and say this just could be maybe not Shem, but honestly, I'm pretty sure this is Shem. You can see the braids. That. I'm not saying they can't braid their hair, and I'm not saying Ham and Japhet can't braid their hair, but I mean, This is a Shemitic person right here. Just in general, this is Shem. I'm gonna say that this is Shemitic looking, and you can see the similarities between the images before and showing you after. Now I know straight up in no way they look alike, but I mean, at least not in facial or head structure, but like looking at it, the fullness of the lips. Look at that broad, big nose. Look at that big old nose and the Asiatic eyes, like the face and the sinuous eyebrows. Look at that sinuous eyebrows. Now you can say, oh, it's slightly angled, yeah, but I mean at the same time, I mean look at that. You could take the features and place it on, and it's identical. Not outright identical, but I mean the facial features are strongly resemblant, and they're there. Is what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. You know, that's all I'm saying. Now on to the next set. Oh, now this one I was playing around with Google's new Gemini AI a while back, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. I was just playing around with it, seeing what answers I could generate and what I could do. I was just testing it, testing the waters, and this shit got interesting. Pardon my language. Now there's a disclaimer on the bottom that says, Gemini might get some of the answers wrong, but I think it's the case that it may get some things wrong partially, but at the same time, there's always a bit of truth in information that doesn't get filtered out like it should, and it's deemed as misinformation or it's deemed wrong by the powers that be. My opinion. But I asked it, all right, give me a summary of the Kushan Empire and Mahayana Buddhism, And here's what it tells me. The Kushan Empire was a powerful empire that ruled Central Asia and parts of South Asia from the 1st century BCE to the 3rd century CE. The empire was founded by the Yushi people who were originally from northwestern China, the Gansu. And they're talking about the Israelites, don't forget. They migrated west into Central Asia after being displaced by another group, the Xiongnu. Now note that most of the Yushi didn't leave and they became the Jushi people to the Chinese who were dominated by the Xiongnu and Han Chinese. Back on track. The Kushans were a tolerant and multicultural empire. Done goofed that. They embraced Buddhism, Hinduism, paganism, and Zoroastrianism, pagan again. And their art reflects this syncretism or syncretism. Look at that. Look at that. The empire was also a major center of trade, and its coins were used throughout Central Asia and South Asia. The Kushan Empire had reached its height under the reign of Kanishka the Great. I'm going to look up who that is in particular, because he 127 to 150 CE, because he might be, possible, not might be, he is important, but I want to see who exactly he is. Kanishka was a Buddhist who sponsored the development of Mahayana Buddhism. He also convened a council of Buddhist scholars in Kashmir to discuss Buddhist philosophy. So he had his own council and he sponsored the development of Mahayana Buddhism. This is happening at 120 to 150 CE. The Kushan Empire began to decline in the 3rd century CE. It was eventually conquered by the Sasanian Empire of Persia. We know that the Persians are their Shem. And the Gupta Empire of India. Not sure who they are, but I'm gonna research that. However, the Kushan Empire left a lasting legacy on Central and South Asia. It was a major center for trade and culture, and its art continues to inspire artists today. Now, I'm not sure what art they're talking about because most of the art is not really there. It's not really present. At least from what I've seen personally, or what I could find, I couldn't really find much of it that wasn't altered or that's not exactly authentic, if that makes sense. In my opinion, but I haven't really seen much of it when I was researching it. So on to the next. Probably the last comparison I will do, but yeah, so this is one of the Kushan sculpture or head busts from that time period, from that time frame. And so this is one of the head busts of it. You see the locks of hair and that ornament and all that in the face. And again, you got full lips. Yeah, pronounced nose bridge. I'll give him that. But sinuous eyebrows, mustache. Now, this is an old picture, or again, previous picture of Bahitsa Padmapani. Again, so you can see the facial structure, sinuous eyes, almond eyes, nose, and fullness of his lips. And you can also even see, this is just me probably picking too much, but I think there's a mustache right there. Actually, I can kind of see it. Yeah, right there in Bing Boo Bop. Then this is my grandfather, so George the First. And I do have his exact face. Like I know where I used to get my face from him. I was gonna include my picture, but I'll do that in another video. Yeah, I already know what I look like. But this is what he looks like. And I used him as an example because I never noticed. They never depicted the ears. Holy crap! I never knew that. Huh? Huh? Anyway, maybe over analyzing it, but the way I'm seeing it's like again they have a similar head shape. One head shape is pretty much identical. The fullness of the lips, and again the mustache. Now the mustache isn't as pronounced or as exaggerated, but I mean if he was to just keep growing it out, he could get it to that length, like where it is where I have mine right now. So I mean it's right there. Now I know his eyes are a bit widened because he's taking a picture, but otherwise he would have almond-shaped eyes. Well, you could see the shape. You can see the almond shape right there. And of course the eyebrow bridge, which is sinuous. It's curvation. It's curving. His ridge curves. It's not just like fucking straight. No, it curves. It's curving. And if he was to grow his hair and have locks, he would have. I have like right now. I have my locks. They're about neck length, or they reach down to my neck, to my upper back. But I know where I get the hair type from. I get it from him. So I mean, it's if he was to grow his locks, they'd look similar to his more than likely, or even his, because I could probably not. I know I could fashion mines in that kind of way. I'm not going to, but I mean, if I chose to, I could make it work. But all I'm saying is, I can see the similarities between what a Kushan was depicted to look like in those days by the sculptors to what my grandfather looks like to what a Buddhist figure looks like. It's like you can see the facial resemblance, and you could understand that these were Shemitic people. Is all I'm saying. That you could see that they were Shemitic. Is all I'm saying. So moving on to the next. Conclusion. Okay. In conclusion, we can say that the Israelites were responsible for the creation of Buddhism. These teachings being corrupted schools and truths of the scripture. The majority of the monasteries being destroyed or in ruin, as opposed to the modern ones in practice by Sinite and Dravidian peoples today. For we were removed from our lands and thus placed in exile, many going to Osiris, pardon me, the Americas. So yeah, the Israelites were responsible for the creation of Buddhism, and it's known and seen as such. They had known his true name and yet still blasphemed it with the amalgamation of pagan influences and idolatry, such as the sins of the Ephraimites in particular, and the change of Haya Haya to Mahayana instead. We should learn from their mistakes and to remember and abide in accordance to the scripture. So more or less, well, my bad, the mic. More or less, we should see this as inspiration to one, be righteous and follow the scripture. Like as rich as this history is in terms of being the progenitors of Buddhism, we know that inherently at its core there was the Torah and it was the scripture, but it was also unrighteous and redundant and unnecessary. That they had deviated away from the teachings of the Most High. As I think it was Zechariah who had put it, it was redundant, unnecessary lessons, and I think it was Hosea. It was either Hosea who said that, you're polluting his great name. You're polluting the name of the Most High with no pagan worship and being like the heathen, essentially. And it's like, it's rich and it's culturally rich history, but we need to take a further step and to learn from their mistakes. And many mistakes were, again, they were being idolatrous, partaking in the heathen worship and practice, and incorporating it, just in deviating away from pure scripture. I'm not saying that there's not valuable lessons to be taken from this, but at the same time, all this can be found within the scripture. I mean, going back to it, we can see where they essentially they derived many of the teachings from the scripture. They just kind of just took it and just changed up a little bit, but most of it is found in scripture. You know, it's like there's much to be learned from it, but at the same time, I'd say the goal and the point of this lesson is to just illustrate and showcase both history of where our people were, what we were doing. Not the whole group of our people, not all of the tribes, but a good chunk of them, where they were, what they were doing, what they're up to, and just showcasing that what they had partook in and just history in general. This is just more or less for history, but to also drive the point home that we need to be righteous. We have to be a righteous people. That means following all the commandments, abiding by the statutes, and doing our best to be righteous and following in the Most High, and also paying attention to prophecy and events and times to come. You know. But back to the slide. My apologies. As we know, the equation being Yushi slash Buddhi equal Sakai Saxons equals Israelites in exile at the end of the day. So again, they weren't exactly the most righteous of Israelites. They were idolaters, borderline, or just basically pagans. Also race traders, some of them joining the Greeks. This happened during the time of Maccabees, so just keep that in mind, or around the time. And now, wrapping up, future topics and projects. Ooh, my bad. Yeah, future topics and projects. Hold on. Okay, my bad, folks. I'm back. Just had to handle something real quick. All right. Oh yeah, future topics and projects. Israelites and Iacobites of China, Part Two. Images and Gemini AI. So we're gonna explore. I did a lot of prompts, so I was very inquisitive, and I was just asking a lot of questions. I wanted to see what answers would be generated. So I found some things very interesting and a few images. So actual historical images and what it looks like and all that jazz, and or just cultural images and also just like ones that were generated. So we're gonna explore that. So that'll be coming up sometime soon. Next one is ideas for the remnant, the second Exodus. This one, I'm just gonna be shooting out some ideas on what we can do as a collective, as the remnant, and I'm purely referencing those who call upon his true name, Haya Haya. I'm not dealing with no friggin' Yahweh or Yahishu. None of that crap. None of that. It's purely those who acknowledge the true name of the Ishi Eloha Haya Haya. Hayah Hayah. That's it. So this is just ideas for them. Like what can we do as a collective or even individually? It's like what can we do to get things in motion in terms of just like leaving, like such as like buying land, exploring options for leaving the country, preparation and things like that. So that's gonna be a shorter video. It's just gonna be more concise. Nothing super long. Another video, Kingdom of Cartley / Georgia in the English Anglo. So that might be a long one. Well, it's probably gonna be a video lesson like this one is. So it's just gonna be a history video or a history lesson. So yeah. Next one, Shang Di and the Jade Emperor possibly being God in ancient China. Now that one's probably gonna be a long video because I really want to research that one and get into nitty gritty of it. And all that jazz. So I'm definitely gonna do some research and look into that. I want to, I find that interesting. Another one is the name of the creator, Haya Haya. Now that one, it won't be too long of a video. It's just more or less going to I figure I'm gonna make a video as to why I've come to know, understand, and acknowledge that this is the true name of the creator, the Most High, the Ishi Eloha, Haya Haya. Like that's the. I'm gonna go into detail why that's is his name, because I learned that primarily and honestly only from Lex. Lex is the only person I've known that has covered that being his actual name. You know, there is no one else I can think of, honestly, at all. Like on YouTube, especially, that I've ever seen him call upon that name. And honestly, it's refreshing. It's truthful because it makes so much sense with the understanding it gives. So I'm gonna do a video on my personal reasons why I believe that is the name. Not believe, because I don't believe. I know it is the true name. I don't think it. I don't feel. No, I know it is the true name, and I understand that it is, and it's the only name that we should call him by. So I'm gonna do a video on that. It's gonna be a short one. It won't be long because I want it to be precise, concise, and easy to understand and drive the point home. I want to help yeah, here to help teach, as a student and a scholar. Another one, preparation for the wilderness and gates of the south. So I might this one might be a collab video in terms of working with Terrell and Tamari, my two close friends, yeah, brothers if you will, and I love and appreciate those guys. Definitely do so. But it might be a collab video with them in terms of talking about what should we do as a people, because I know we often get a lot of you got a lot of these Israelite camps always talking about prophecy and we gotta wait for the crusty man to come back or the Most High is gonna do it. Or it's like that video is gonna be more or less just like, okay, what can here's the nitty gritty of it and what can we do to actually prepare for the wilderness, such as buying seeds, getting supplies and all that, and Gate to the South, it's gonna more or less be a connected video to the ideas for Remnant, because that one might just be solo, maybe. I might also collab with them on that, but it just might be a second part to that video. But it's just more or less ideas on what can we do to actually move and get out there. Because I know there's the paperwork that Lex has been talking about, which should should look into and actively do, and also getting out there. Because we had bought land back out there back in October to make the move down in New Mexico. So I mean, there's a lot of ideas that I want to talk about with y'all, and I think that we can actually make move and move towards to as a community, at least individually getting out there and as a community connect together and build something or work our way up to getting back to hopefully sometime in the future being a nation. Granted, we also deal with the oncoming beast system in 2030 and all that jazz, and yeah. And lastly, identities of Shem, Siam, lies of Japheth, and Cham's wickedness. So we're gonna be talking about that. Now does not mean to glorify the children of Shem at all. This is just more or less showcasing who Shem actually is, like his actual identities. The lies of Japheth, because it's quite literally in his blessing to deceive others and lie to himself. And Cham's wickedness of uncovering his father's nakedness, which is just a man's diddling his mom. Yeah, so it gets wicked. So we're gonna get into some things with that video, but honestly, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I think it's gone on long enough, but I appreciate you if you guys watch this video, and hopefully you've taken useful information out of it, and hopefully you just find it useful as a historical video for understanding, and hopefully just adding correct context to what history actually happened, or just a better understanding of history, our place, and what we should be doing better as a community and as a whole people, and just doing the right thing, being righteous. But thank you guys for watching. Have yourselves a good one, and be blessed and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Have a good one.